Hey people, here's another video Obscura Hot Takes, the E3 edition. And today we are talking about Ubisoft, Square Enix, and a couple of other announcements that popped up during the day. Ubisoft, they gave an absolutely cracking conference in my opinion. They started out strong with Watch Dogs Legion, which is a game that I'm quite looking forward to. I like the Watch Dogs games a lot. I've always really enjoyed this series and how it's about our connected society and all the dangers for putting ourselves out in those systems. The challenge always stems from gamifying this and make hacking seem like this counterculture punk sort of thing. It's set in what they call a post-Brexit London, which is a fantastic venue to tell this story. Not as much the Brexit part, that's kind of shoehorned in for marketing purposes, and they even said in a video that they had decided on London way before the whole Brexit thing. Because for years now London have been on the forefront of running this whole CCTV system that you see in the other Watch Dogs games, where they kind of have cameras everywhere and keep an eye on everything. And if you crank that up to 11, then yes, you get this authoritarian dystopian metropolis, as you see it in Watch Dogs Legion. I also feel that the name and the concept of the game finally turns DedSec into this sort of whole 4chan anonymous thing that they were kind of going for in the first place, and that's pretty cool. In case you haven't heard, you can play and recruit anyone in the game, and this is done with this whole system that auto-generates characters and give them random traits and relations to other randomly generated characters in the game. And once you recruit them, you can organize them into 3 different classes, which gains perks as they level up. It's kind of a brilliant idea for a game. It seems almost weird that someone haven't come up with it before. I mean, think about it, even though there is permadeath for the characters, there's nothing such as a definitive game over. Sure, you have the other characters that you have recruited, but it's kind of implied from the way that you start out the game as just a random character generated on the spot, that you'd probably switch focus to a new generated character if you should run out in the game. But while all these systems are of course obviously new and fascinating, the question is how it will all come together. Because if everything is just sort of procedurally generated and there's no cohesive story, well then it isn't much of a game in my opinion. It'll be boring if you're just playing for a couple of hours and then start seeing how the cookie cutter templates for missions start shining through. But Ubisoft is pretty well known to make big expensive games, so I'm pretty confident that the end result will be pretty good. So yeah, definitely excited about this one. Then they talked some more Ghost Recon Breakpoint, which looks like a continuation on the ideas of Ghost Recon Wildlands. And this looks like more of the Tom Clancy tactical fantasy, where you can set up cooperative sniper shots and all that. I thought Wildlands was a fun game to just mindlessly grind away at while listening to podcasts. Would be cool if Breakpoint was a little bit more involved than that and had a little bit more story to it, but yeah, definitely not a day one purchase for me, but I'll keep it on the radar. There was another game I looked at and found interesting, which was Rainbow Six Quarantine. What it sounds like is your kind of Left 4 Dead style co-op shooter, much like another game that was announced during the PC show, which was Sniper Elite Zombie Army 4. Now, I've done a review of the Zombie Army trilogy in the past, which is a game I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed how it was supernatural zombies and not just some viral outbreak, because it gave him a lot of room to throw in some demonic stuff. But one problem and one issue that you kind of run into a lot with these sorts of games is the point that they are co-op driven. As soon as people start losing interest in playing something else, and these days that can be just within a week or two, well then you're stuck with a game that is pretty much dead. But the thing they were talking about with Rainbow Six Siege Quarantine was that they were going to try and do that kind of in the same way that Rainbow Six Siege works. And that has been a game that has been constantly evolving and adding new operators over time. So if you can do that for a co-op shooter, keeping it fresh and constantly updating it with new content, well then I'm very interested in seeing more of this. So that's big on my radar as well. Oh, and now that we are talking about Zombie Army, let's not forget that Rebellion also announced a new PlayStation VR title built on their Sniper Elite games. This is a really cool game that supports the aim controller, and I got one of those that honestly doesn't get much use, so I'm super excited to see more games coming for this device. Keep them coming. They also incorporated their signature bullet cam mode, where you almost become the bullet, and I can imagine that this probably looks pretty wild in virtual reality. So that's another game on my list to look forward to. Ubisoft had a couple of other games. It's a year with no Assassin's Creed, but I guess that's usually the case when a new Watch Dogs game is on the horizon. Besides, the Assassin's Creed series has really moved away from being Assassin's Creed in my opinion. There's not much stealth and sneaking around as much as there is just running up on dudes and murdering them. Also, I don't really like the whole sword and sandal stuff, because I think it's kinda boring. But it sounds like the Assassin's Creed people are really into this whole Greek mythology stuff. So they're doing sort of an offshoot called Gods and Monsters, which is more like a fantasy cartoonish looking game. And it makes me wonder if it will even still be some sort of open world exploration thing that you can play for hundreds of hours. But yeah, the setting alone, as I said, not really my cup of tea.
Welcome to the second annual Limited Run Games E3 presentation, broadcasting live from the remodeled Limited Run Auditorium in Apex, North Carolina. Coming onto the stage, our hosts, Josh Fairhurst and Douglas Bogart.
Limited Run Games also had a pretty cool pre-recorded press conference where they announced a whole bunch of upcoming releases. A couple of the big ones that I'm personally looking forward to is the physical versions of Night in the Woods, Blazing Chrome and Blaster Master Zero. I think I've really hit this weird point where I'm looking at all these games that are really good but are digital only, and then I end up not want to buying them because I want the physical version. I don't want to buy a game twice. And there's Limited Run and there's all these other companies putting out these games that I just kind of end up waiting forever and ever. But both Blaster Master Zero and Night in the Woods, those are two games I've really waited for a long time. So that's gonna be great. But the real big final announcement was that they are going to put out all these old LucasArts Star Wars games. The first one being Star Wars Bounty Hunter for the PlayStation 4. Now, we already know that the work has been done to port this game to PlayStation 4. I want to say it was around the time with Star Wars Battlefront 1 or 2 that was done. But it's more all the other games on the list here. Are they really implying that we're going to get console versions of these games? These old PC classics like X-Wing, TIE Fighter, Dark Forces. If these games are coming to console, well, that's kind of wild. I guess we'll have to wait and see what they have to say. There's also a short musical stinger on the end of the trailer for Monkey Island, so maybe we'll get some kind of Monkey Island compilation on a disc for maybe the PlayStation 4, the Switch. Exciting stuff ahead in any case. Now let's move on to Square Enix, who undoubtedly started the show with the showstopper. I mean, it kind of took the wind out of the rest of the presentation to start out with the Final Fantasy VII Remake. What can I say, it looks amazing. They even showed off an extended bit of real actual combat, which looks way more tactile and involved than Final Fantasy XV did. And I didn't mind that game at all. I thought it was fun to play, but honestly you weren't really always in control. That's not how it felt, at least. And we also finally got to see Tifa, which looks amazing. So yeah, super hyped for this one. The rest of their show were mostly just a bunch of RPG announcements that kind of blended together as you kept thinking about Final Fantasy VII. But the last one they announced of those were the Final Fantasy VIII Remaster. And while 7 is a fantastic and beloved game, my personal favorite has probably always been 8. I love that game, and I've been kind of wondering why it wasn't coming to the Switch at the same time that they announced that they were porting pretty much every other Final Fantasy game to the system. But now I know the answer. They were working on this remaster. It'll probably have all the bells and whistles like the other remasters has, such as the ability to speed up combat with a fast forward button. And remembering just how much you had to draw magic in Final Fantasy VIII, well, that's probably for the best. I know it's a broken system, but I kinda loved it. But yeah, they finished on a very confusing presentation of the new Avengers game by Crystal Dynamics. dynamics. They didn't show any gameplay at all. They were way more focused on their story bits and the voice talent that it had hired for the game. But I mean, you gotta show at least some gameplay. Anyway, we know there's gonna be gameplay at E3, so presumably we'll see something about how the game plays very soon. Now, with the last Avengers movie coming out recently, I'm kinda fed up with all the Marvel superhero stuff, so I don't really know. But I mean, if the gameplay's cool, then hell yeah, I'm interested. Nintendo! I expected some cool stuff out of their E3 Direct, but I didn't expect it to be this packed, especially with stuff for me. There were a bit of talk about some Smash characters, some Animal Crossing, which is fine, but then they showed some more of Luigi's Mansion 3, that new Link's Awakening remake, as well as announcing Trials of Mana and the Seiken Densetsu collection coming in English to the Switch, which is just crazy. I mean, it's been out in Japan for a while now, but since it didn't show up at Square Enix's conference, I had all but given hope of seeing it at all. We also already got announced a No More Heroes game, straight up No More Heroes 3. There was also a new Contra game announced, which looks to be everything that actual Contra fans don't want. I thought it looked pretty okay. Looks like one of those top-down dual joystick shooters that there were so many on Xbox Live Arcade, and since those kind of vanished, I've kind of been missing them for a while. The trailer had me worried though. There was something about the way the lady spoke that made me think that they were about to announce a new MOBA game, so maybe it's more relief that it's an actual real game and not some MOBA, which is why I'm actually looking forward to playing it. Daemon X Machina got another trailer. I have the demo sitting on my Switch, but I haven't played it yet. But it was a nice reminder to check it out before deciding on whether or not to get the game. But Nintendo wasn't done announcing stuff at all. How about a Panzer Dragoon remake? That's another thing they just pulled out of the hat, which I was kind of positive by now that we were never gonna see. Platinum showed some more of Astral Chain, a game that's coming out very soon, a couple of months at least, which also looks fantastic. I really recommend checking out the Nintendo Treehouse streams from the show floor, because they show a good chunk of gameplay that doesn't really show as well in these short trailers. But this game looks like it has Platinum's A-team working on it, so I'm massively looking forward to it. Nintendo, they sure know how to pack that Direct. It was just a 40-minute show, and they really had way more games of interest than you usually get at the stage shows that goes on for much longer. So with all the major announcements and press conferences out of the way, who won E3, so to speak? Well, there was one company that rose from the grave with an announcement so big that it shook the foundation of E3.
Then check this out.
That's right, the PC Engine is back, baby. All of Hudson's amazing games are coming out of Konami prison on a new mini-console in 3 variations. We're talking games like Bonk's Adventure, Superstar Soldier, The Kung Fu, Castlevania Rondo of Blood. Okay, so maybe The Kung Fu isn't a fantastic game, but I like it a lot. It has big sprites. Do you understand how big a deal that was back in the day? Massive sprites. I mean, that is how you measured what a good game was. Because good games are arcade games, and arcade games have big sprites, so naturally if you can get big sprites on your home game console games, then you're playing a good game. Simple. It's not a big mystery, people. And this is just a handful of the games that have been announced so far, with many more to come. And an even crazier announcement is that the system is also getting a multi-tab that you can buy separately to play games for up to 5 players. And since it's clearly not just Hue card games, but also CD-ROM games, then you just know that this console is gonna be a beast. I'll say it again, Konami won E3. Congratulations, Konami. But this is probably all my hot takes for E3 2019. I want to thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, and a big thank you to all my Patreons who are supporting the channel with just $1 a month, which you can too if you follow the link below the video. Take care and have some fun playing video games.